What do we make? What do we make of Conor's post-fight Poirier reaction and response? I don't mean in the ring. I don't mean right there caught in that moment. You could bring that in. I'll take anything after the fight, but it's still going on to this day, right? Messages that have been put out there and then messages that have been deleted. Most recently today was two different things. First off, refusing to admit that he lost the fight. He lost the fight because it was a doctor stoppage. Not that he was losing that round, not that he was dominated, not that Herb almost stopped the fight two different times. And then adding in also today that he entered that fight hurt. You can ask anyone. You can ask Dana. You can ask Dr. Davidson. I had stress fractures going into that fight. I'm just saying, how do we interpret that? Conor's not wrong for doing any of these things. This is very in line with what fighters say after they lose a fight and they get embarrassed. It's very, very in line. It's just not in line with the way Conor has done it before. Conor's been very gracious, always. Even if you go back to the second Poirier fight, Conor got cleaned up, says, look, I got to make some adjustments. That guy's got a hell of a weapon I wasn't familiar with in that calf kick. I got to change some stuff, but my history says that I'm pretty good at making adjustments. Let's do it a third time. But he was a real gentleman. I could say that about every Conor defeat he's had. I could even say it about a couple of victories. Right in the moment, he's still marketing. He grabs that microphone. He lines up what's next. He knows the deal. But I can think of the night that he beat Poirier. Ariel goes into the locker room and interviews him. And Conor, right, you remember, I don't mean Poirier, I mean Cowboy. But you guys remember that fight with Cowboy. It was a real PR tour. He did what he needed to do right in the moment, right after the fight when everybody's watching. But he goes in the back. He's a little calmer. It's going to go in a .com. It's going to pop up a few hours later. He knew his market, and he was a real gentleman again. So how do we juxtapose that Conor with this Conor, and do we need to be judged? And that's where I get a hard time, guys. I'm a bit of a Conor defender in this. First off, he was broken in half. That's a totally different loss than anything I can relate to, and few things that I've ever even seen. I've only seen that injury 4 times. I could name them. Corey Hill, Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman, Conor McGregor. I remember those nights that they happened, though, because they hurt me. They hurt. I saw, it hurt. It hurt me physically to see that, and it didn't even happen to me. One of those things, just a weird reaction, but I remember them all very well. Conor was the only one of those 4 that was spoken to in that moment. Whatever comes out of his mouth, for me as a human, this is the human talking, not the fight fan, he's going to get a pass. Good, bad, or indifferent, he gets a pass. That's not normal him. Comes out after the fact. He puts out some things on Twitter when we have every reason to believe that he's on a assortment of painkillers, more likely than not morphine. Who let him have his phone in his hand in the first place is a great, much greater question that we should all be looking at and pointing a finger to than what Conor tweeted out and pushed a button that he then got the sense and deleted. Come on. I'm only asking you in this moment, how do we take these two polar opposites? Because there's a very opposite thing happening here. We're seeing opposite preparations. That admittedly is through rumor. We never knew how he was training back when things were going well. We don't fully know how he's training now when things aren't. But the rumors and the reports are different, very, very different. The performances are very, very different. It looks like a different guy in there. Some of the speed is gone. Some of the ability to withstand is gone. I could keep pointing those things out, but why? I'm not looking to kick a guy. I'm just sharing it's opposite. It's different. For this specific fight, the lead up, particularly 48 hours before, where the lid came off, right? Conor was doing no media. He lifted a lid on that thing 48 hours before bell time. Do we chalk that up to let's squeeze every last paper dollar we can get out of it, pay-per-view dollar? I didn't. I thought that was Conor trying to put himself in a position that old Conor used to be in. It's a very real thing. We've done that as athletes. I can tell you, when I grew up and got out of the nest, started to find myself in some big opportunities, I used to go back to my childhood club. Now, I don't think there was a whole lot, in fairness, that I could gain working out with 9, 14, 17-year-old kids, but it was a mindset. It's trying to take yourself back, trying to remember some of that hunger that got you there in the first place. So I just thought I recognized what Conor was doing. I thought I recognized when Conor started going at Poirier a little harder than usual that he was trying to get that brash, hungry self back. That's what I saw. How do we interpret what he's doing now by running things back? Because he's not lying. Did he have stress fractures? Sure. I mean, maybe he did, maybe he did. Let's just say he did. I got stress fractures right now. I haven't trained in X amount of time. I mean, I just share with you, Conor did not have any stress fractures that Poirier didn't have. The fact that he admitted it and used as an excuse, very in line with what other fighters do. Just unique for McGregor. He's never done that before, right? He's never made himself look weak. He's always sold power. He has none. He's never had power. But he's given the perception he does, and he sold that very well. He's now doing the opposite. We're not used to it. He's not wrong. I've heard people come down on him and talk about what a poor sport he is. What Conor is doing right now, trying to explain away an embarrassing loss, is perfectly in line with how every other fighter's ever acted. He just hasn't done it. I think that part of the story should be told. He's not doing anything that's people are giving him a hard time right now, like he's being some kind of a jerk. Okay, great. Well, then that goes for everybody else that's ever got a loss ever. They all do that same thing. All of them. You go, well, I never heard so-and-so do it. Well, so-and-so doesn't have a voice. Believe me, he did do it in his small circle of the 10 people that want to hear from him. Conor just happens to have 10 billion people that want to hear from him, right? It's a different thing. It's the same message. I'm sharing with you, even as I'm attempting to defend Conor, I'm sharing with you, I've never seen him sell weakness or appear weak. Ask Dr. Davidson, ask Dana. You know, there was times in my life that I had to bring a note from my mother if I was sick one day and missed school. Then I got to college. I was a grown-ass man. All I had to do is not show up. And ask Dr. Davidson. It was one of these things. And you can't also get a stress fracture. How would you know? A stress fracture is a little bit of, I have them right now. I don't share that with you in belly who. It's nothing. So Conor had some kind of a pain and he went to a doctor and the doctor got x-rayed him. I mean, this is wimpy stuff. This is wimpy stuff to the highest degree that is also very normal. Anyone else that had a pain would go ask Doc and Doc says x-ray. There's nothing out of line here. It's just very out of line for Conor. I've never seen him try to look weak. I've never seen him not very conscious of looking powerful as opposed to looking weak. I'm surprised by it. I don't know how to interpret it. Charles Oliveira came out today and said that he believes Conor is going to be out for 6 weeks. And I'm sure when he returns, he will fight Dustin Poirier. Now, Charles was trying to be very nice. Charles, even in that same statement, said we should give Conor a standing ovation. I don't like the way he promotes fights. I don't like that brashness, but he's done a great job for himself, and that's who his first obligations to. I tip my hat to Charles. It was very beautiful what Charles had to say. Charles thinks he'll be back in 6 weeks. Charles isn't ready to fight. Charles had no injuries from his last fight, and he sat out way more than 6 weeks. So how he got to that conclusion, right? Okay. But he was still attempting to be nice, right? You sprinkle a little case of the dum-dum in there. Okay, but he was still trying to be nice. But for Charles to say, I think he's going to fight Poirier next, Charles is the only guy that can say that without disrespecting anybody. Because the only way Conor ever sees Poirier is if Poirier gets his ass beat by Charles. It's just a weird talking point. And it's an interesting position. And I speak about weakness, which is just something Conor's never shown. All of the things that I just brought to you show weakness, but also Conor's willingness that it's Poirier or die. Poirier or I'm out. Poirier or nothing. Well, you're probably going to be out then. You're probably going to be out because Poirier is probably going to be the champion. No matter how you sell this or what notes you bring from your mom, you're not getting a world championship fight. Now, we fiercely adhere in this sport to the rules that we make up on the spot. I'm well aware. That's a stretch. Can we agree on that?